Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Gostola, managing editor for Shadowproof, and I'm joined by Rania Khalek, our reporter who is in Philadelphia, cover the Democratic National Convention. Welcome, Rania.
Hey, Kevin.
And so we wanted to talk to you about what happened on day two. The big news, if you're following the establishment media, is that Hillary Clinton is now the Democratic Party's nominee, and that they shattered the glass ceiling, and they even had a nice little sound effect for it, and she did a video. So, but the other story that isn't being told that we really wanted to give attention is that there was a walkout. The Bernie Sanders delegates, hundreds of them, did engage in a walkout, and the media is actually really downplaying the significance of it. But you were there, you covered it, you knew it was going to happen. You're one of the only reporters who knew it was going to happen, and were ready right when it began. So talk to us. What happened, and why is this significant?
Yeah, so like you said, there was a walkout. It was planned, and it had been planned right after the roll call was over and Clinton would be, officially announced as the Democratic nominee. And several hundred people did it. It was hard to estimate because there were so many people, but basically after the roll call was officially over and Sanders, because Sanders gave a little spiel for Vermont and then left, it was then that people basically congregated out of the arena, like outside of, on the perimeter of the arena, and started chanting, "Walk out, walk out, walk out." And there was cameras everywhere, including us. I mean, we were live streaming, as you saw, on Facebook, and we shared that, and we followed it. It was hundreds of people, and they walked out like they had told me they would, over to the media tent, the media pavilion, where all the major media outlets, our big media outlets, are stationed and have like booths, including the Real News, which I was working with, and they basically filed into the media area, and they were actually silent as they filed in. It was like a silent protest because they didn't want to be they didn't want to like do it, they didn't want to be too chaotic, but they wanted to basically. What people were saying is that they wanted to protest a couple things. One was the reason they went to the media pavilion was symbolic because it was a protest against the corporate media, against the media's distorted coverage of this entire primary election, and their very clear hostility towards Sanders supporters throughout the primary process, and it's ongoing now, as we've seen with the media reports on this particular protest that have been very, very very hostile, mocking, and very dismissive, and some of them even ignored the fact that there was a protest, even though there was cameras everywhere. So, talking to people who were inside, they sat down, and then what was going to happen was a major Sanders delegate from Vermont, who was apparently a close friend of Bernie Sanders, was supposed to be speaking to address this sort of silent protest / sit-in inside the media pavilion. And then suddenly police started blocking off all the doors to the media tent. And so a few hundred people actually got locked outside and couldn't come in. And then the few hundred people that were inside the media tent were just sitting down and largely silent for a while and just doing a sit-in. Like there was nothing violent happening. I didn't feel unsafe. And so according to the person that was sort of coordinating it, a man we were following around, he was saying that the police were there because first of all, they're supposed to be there when anything like that happens, but also it seems that somebody had ordered them to block off the doors. And he wasn't sure if it was the media, whoever was in charge of the media tent, or if it was the DNC. And I suspect it was the DNC because at some point after about an hour of this taking place, the DNC, a couple officials from the DNC, met inside of the BuzzFeed booth at the media pavilion. They closed off the BuzzFeed booth. They kind of took it over and were deciding, determining what was going to happen, whether were going to arrest people or just let them go. But basically, no one was allowed to come in or out for a while, and it was very bizarre. And the DNC people, the media tent or the media booth for BuzzFeed was surrounded by security guards, and nobody would really give us answers. But it was really striking because these kinds of protests usually take place outside of the DNC, and this was a clear protest that happened inside the DNC for people to vocalize or demonstrate their lack of support for Hillary Clinton, and their anger not just at Hillary Clinton, but at the entire Democratic primary process and at the DNC. And after everything that's taken place, it's utterly shocking for me to read the media headlines today about what took place and it being so incredibly dismissive and mocking Sanders supporters and deriding them for daring to protest when there was the first female nominee of any major party, as though that is what takes precedent over the the very important issues that these people told me they're concerned about.
So there are a couple follow-ups to that. The first thing is that Bernie Sanders himself requested that these people not engage in this walkout. And so it would seem to me that that should be part of why we should consider this significant, that hundreds of people would still believe that this was the right move to take, that there needed to be some kind of a protest response to Hillary's nomination in spite of how Sanders himself wanted to handle it from his position.
Yeah, so that's another interesting thing about it. I mean, yes, Sanders has been, giving off the message of please don't engage in protests. Let's be respectful. We have to get behind Clinton. But actually, people who did participate in the walkout, I was told Sanders made a stop by their delegation meeting this morning, and he didn't even mention it. So he didn't seem to he didn't lecture anybody or express anger. I mean, that's what I heard from at least one person. I haven't spoken to as many delegates as I'd like to, and I will, to see if there was some sort of backlash for that. But Kevin, what was really fascinating was that after this walkout, I mean, people were still very outraged, and it was amazing because there were some media people inside the media pavilion who were annoyed by the sit-in because now they were locked inside, and they were upset because they can't get their work done now because they want to be inside the convention hall. The story just came to you. This is the news right now. There is a walkout that took place after the nominee was announced of a large number of Sanders delegates that are sitting. They came to the media pavilion to send you a message. And the response, not from everybody, but from some, was just to be annoyed. I can't go now cover the speech that every other major network is at the moment airing live. So that was just very clear to me. Just how I don't often get to be around major media outlets very often, or bigger media outlets, and just to see how some of them behave, it's astonishing, because I was there to see what happened, and it was just, it was they saw a different protest than I did. But what was really, really amazing that happened afterwards, and this is why the DNC, if they really, really are concerned about beating Trump in November, I don't understand why they're chasing away Democrats. And that's what they're doing. They're chasing away an entire segment of Democrats who are now telling me that they want to leave the party, lifelong Democrats, saying screw the Democratic Party, fuck the Democratic Party, I'm done with the DNC. It's fuck these people. They are just continually smacking me in the face and giving me the middle finger. And at one point, after all was said and done and people were finally allowed to leave the media pavilion, a bunch of Sanders delegates congregated because they heard Jill Stein came to the convention, which she did. Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate. I don't know how she got in, but she was in the convention, and there were so many people interested in speaking to her and surrounding her that she had to have a Secret Service detail when she got inside. But they basically wanted to meet with Jill Stein. And some people didn't even know who she was. They were just I'm so done with the Democratic Party. I just want to meet with Jill Stein. Who is this lady? Because, if there's a third party to vote for, great, because I'm not on board with this shit. And so if the DNC actually cares, I mean, Trump is beating Clinton in certain polls right now. And if they actually really wanted to defeat him in November, they would not be doing this. They are actually sinking themselves at the moment. I don't know what the hell these people are thinking, but they're destroying their own party.
So, and then one more thing. I'm just going to read you this quote because, you're well aware of who Van Jones is, and he was on CNN. And I think since we're talking about media, he definitely deserves whatever outrage you're going to have when I read you this quote. So he said, there could have been a real civil war. There could have been protests from the Sanders people that were serious and sustained and disruptive on the floor. And then he was interrupted, and a person on CNN said, well, there was a walkout. And he said, yeah, there was a walkout. And then the other person said, yeah, and it was of delegates. And he said, yeah, but walkouts are what you do when you're trying to show that you're mad. Sit-ins are what you do when you're trying to shut down a convention, and there was no sit-in. Trust me, I know all the tactics. The walkout's the best you're going to get from folks like me, so you got past that. That was not a guaranteed thing. You got past that. Then you had to present a Hillary Clinton. So really, he was just suggesting that the way they engaged in protest doesn't matter. It wasn't really a real protest that anybody should care about.
Yeah, and you know what? That's exactly the attitude of people who, no matter who wins in November, Van Jones is going to be fine. You know, no matter who wins in November, there's a lot of people who are speaking like this who are going to be perfectly fine. And I keep hearing people say, oh, you know, like we have to be concerned about the most oppressed people in this country. They're going to be really screwed by Trump. They're also going to be screwed by Clinton. And a lot of the people I was talking to who are Sanders delegates, they aren't in positions of elitism. They're not. They are average working people, some of them, a lot of them actually, who had never really even engaged in the political process in this way before, and now they're delegates from their states because Bernie Sanders inspired them, because they in their own lives, you know, are struggling. And that's one of the reasons that he had appealed to them so much. And so these are people who are sitting in and protesting, not because they're spoiled children who can't get behind one personality over another. This is bigger than personalities of these people. This is about being able to afford, like, retiring one day. This is about being able to, like, have a normal life and not have to spend forever paying your student debt. This is about being able to access affordable health care because you're sick or because you provide health care to people. You know, this is about being a teacher. I met a Chicago Teachers Union, a person in the Chicago Teachers Union who was talking to me about, you know, the way that Sanders appealed to her. And, you know, as a teacher, like, it's a struggle in this country. You don't get paid very much. You are taken for granted. In Chicago, of all places, your schools are shut down by a Democrat, and your wages are cut and your benefits are cut. So these are the kinds of people that are supporting Sanders. And you know, under a Clinton presidency, none of the issues affecting their like their lives concretely, are going to get better. And that is why they're protesting. And not just for themselves, but other people too. They recognize that other people are struggling. And you know, another thing I was told by one nurse that I interviewed, who was for Bernie Sanders, from California, a California delegate, is she told me about the protest. She said, of course we support these acts of protest, which there are plenty of them, by the way. But of course we support them. When on earth do we ordinary people ever get this kind of access to political elites? This is a convention where we're surrounded by them. Politicians are here. They are forced to look at us and to at least acknowledge or listen, or they have to hear what we're saying. And so you don't get that opportunity if you're an ordinary American to address or ever take your actual complaints to the face of the political elites who actually make the decisions that affect your life and the lives of so many millions of others. And so in that context, you know, all these people who are like, oh, they ruined, you know, Hillary Clinton's coronation as first woman, you know, nominee for any major party, like, that is the most superficial thing to be concerned about at a moment like this.
Well, thank you. We appreciate all your reporting on the ground. We'll continue to follow it, and we'll hopefully have you on again to catch up on this third day.
Yep, good to be with you, Kevin. Thanks.